Hey everyone, Keenan Gray here from DyeStat.com, bringing you another installment of DyeStat discussions. Big weekend ahead in the state of California, down at the Mount Sac Cross Country course in Walnut, California. The last qualifier for Foot Locker Cross Country Championships the following week in San Diego, California. The gal that's going to be racing there on Saturday is hoping to get back to Foot Locker for a third time in her career. This is Chiara Dailey from La Jolla High School, who again is from San Diego, so would love to get back to her hometown and race at Foot Locker, and definitely has some big aspirations to try to win a national title this year. But of course, you have to take care of business this weekend to get to Foot Locker. So, Chiara, really appreciate your time this weekend. And just the whole Foot Locker National Championship is a big deal in the Dailey household. Your dad ran at this when he was in high school. Your mom ran at this. I think last year you ran in your mom's singlet
Yeah.
at the Foot Locker West. Just tell us a little bit of like why this is such a big deal and like why you decide, let's do Foot Locker instead of like the Nike Cross Nationals route.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely tradition. Both my parents did it. They've always been like big advocates for Foot Locker. Also, it's just the fact that it's like my hometown. It's in San Diego. I run my league meets on that course. I know that course like the back of my hand. And like I mean, talking about NXN, it's like there's lots of travel. The weather's not always great. I mean, I just prefer to like stay in my own hometown and then race. And yeah, like I said before, my parents did it. I just feel like Foot Locker is a very like old tradition and definitely yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of the longest running national championships in the entire country. So
Yeah.
rightfully so, it has earned that pedigree that it's had for so many and so many big names. Like, I mean, obviously, there's been Elizabeth Leachman last year, Drew Griffith on the boys' side, but and like there's Sarah Hall that's competed there, Galen Rupp has competed there. For your time, being in the Foot Locker scene, like what have you enjoyed the most about it?
I'd say NXN is a lot geared towards teens and stuff, and I'd say in Foot Locker they really like go towards the individuals. They like pamper you. You really get the full experience. It's like it's completely tailored just to you and as an individual. And they give you a lot of attention, and it feels pretty nice. So that's probably what.
Well, then I'll ask you this: like, what about the cores, the atmosphere? You talk a little bit how they take care of you guys, they amp you guys up as individuals, but like, what is it about the actual race or just the experience that you enjoy about Foot Locker?
I mean, it's definitely like cool to get the 10 girls from all the regions and you get to meet and know all these girls who come from all over the country. And I mean, a lot of them I haven't met before and it's cool to like really see people. And also it's just San Diego is always sunny. I love it here. I love living here and it's never really been bad weather. Also, something about Foot Locker is that I've always like come here when I was younger. I'd watch the race and I'd be like, wow, these girls are so cool. Like, I hope I can be in something like this one day. And it's pretty cool to actually like be in one of it this now, like since I've been in high school. Like, yeah, like when I was in elementary school, I've gone to a few and I'd be like, wow. So,
Remember when you were younger, like the most memorable Foot Locker event that you attended?
I think I went to one when I was like 9 or something, and that was pretty cool. I don't remember that one that as much, but when I was in 8th grade, it was pretty cool because I was like, well, I'm gonna be in high school next year. Like, I'll probably do cross country. Like, maybe I'll be in this race next year, and I was. So that was pretty cool. Going there in 8th grade.
Who ran at that race your eighth grade year?
I mean, no one I knew. My dad's friend always set up a tailgate there, so I'd go because just all my dad's friends would go there, and I would just go with them. So yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of tailgate, your dad has been doing this the last 2 years at the national meet.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about that. And the cool thing about it is you have your family, obviously, they're right there in San Diego, but you have your classmates, you have your close friends. They all come over there. They support you.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not necessarily like a football tailgate, but it's pretty damn close to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, my dad really hypes up the race. He gets all my friends, all my, like, I don't have much family here, but he gets a lot of my friends here. And he prints out shirts with my name on it and my face, and then he'll, like, get donuts and food and all his friends to come out. It's cool to, like, see people on the course with my shirt on, like, as I'm racing, and I'm just like, oh, hey. I mean, I'm pretty locked in at that point, but yeah.
Yeah. Do Do you initially sometimes maybe get a little embarrassed, or are you like, "Hey, that's pretty cool that my family does care enough that much about me for this"?
I mean, I'm not really embarrassed. I think it's cool. I mean, sometimes it's a little much. It's kind of funny whenever I'll like go run out and everyone will be like, yeah, and yeah. I mean, all the very obnoxious yellow shirts they're pretty funny. So
Well, and I think you've kind of earned that attention, rightfully so, and especially this year, this junior season for yourself has gone really well. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, you look at what you did at Woodbridge, what you were able to accomplish at your state championship, which congratulations on finally breaking 17 for the
yeah,
very first time. I mean,
thank
that had to have felt really good.
yeah.
Let's talk about the California State meet, at Woodward Park and Fresno. I mean, winning a second consecutive title, but to finally break a barrier, which I'm sure you've been trying to chase after that 17-minute barrier for a long time. What feel like for you to finally do that?
I mean, it was really cool. The thing about California is we run mostly 3 miles, so whenever I do get a chance to do a 5K, it's always like state or nationals, and they're both like pretty challenging courses. I mean, nationals is pretty hard, but state is a good course. I really like that course, so I mean, it was a good chance to like actually get a good time in, and I mean, I broke 17 by a lot, so not a lot, but pretty good. And
Yeah.
yeah, it felt really good, especially since I was soloing it and I had to go time trial it basically by myself. So yeah, it felt good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we had a pretty good indicator of you could run a sub 17 based on what you did at Woodbridge and then based on, other courses you've ran were in the round like the 16 high range or so. Did you have a pretty good feeling that on Saturday that was probably maybe your only opportunity this year? I know Balboa Park you probably could, but that's a very challenging
Yeah.
course.
Um, I mean, my dad told me I could. My dad thought I could run like a lot faster, but I mean, given the circumstances, I was happy with that. I mean, going into the race, I was like, okay, I just want to get the fastest time out of everyone because it's weird because it always splits people up, and honestly, the
Hmm.
best people in the state a lot of times never even race each other. Um, so I was like, okay, just going into it, I'm the last race, so that's perfect. So I'll just try and run the fastest time that had already been run that day. So yeah.
Yeah. So how do you motivate yourself in that sense when you know that someone like Sadie is racing in the Division Two, Riley is racing in Division One? I mean, the only time you really get to see those girls or race against them is at a meet like Woodbridge or maybe like a Clovis or a Mount Sac type of race.
I mean, I just try to motivate myself because I feel like I'm always like overlooked in almost like the running media or something. I don't know what it is, but I would just like try and think of it like, oh, I'm proving myself, like I'm just as good as them. Like that's more of what I how I try to motivate myself. And I mean, at state going through the first mile and the second mile, I was actually behind Riley's times, so I was like, okay, I got to make it up in the last mile. So I really tried to speed up at the end, but yeah, I mean that's how I motivated myself.
Yeah, and I think you've earned the right to be like, obviously like Sadie and Riley, they've done all these great things this last couple of years, but like you yourself have done a lot of good things. I think you've earned to have that attention from the media. And like myself, I mean like I yes, like you dropped out of the top 10 for a little bit, but now you're back in the top 10 recently just because of your great race at Foot Locker. Like how much do you really pay attention to like people like talking about that on the outside and how much of that is motivation for you?
I mean, honestly, I try not to think about it that much because the rankings a lot of times are kind of like dumb because they just like do it on the week specifically.
Hmm.
And I mean, before state, I wasn't even in the top 25. They just like completely dropped me out. So I mean, because I had one bad race, and I mean that
Hmm.
kind of made me like a little upset. But I mean, I try not to think about it. It's just like the rankings are always kind of a little interesting. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I try not to let it.
Yeah, no, and I think what you've done enough to kind of earn that respect from a lot of people around the country that Chiara Dailey is the real deal, and it started at Woodbridge this year when you ran an incredibly fast time against an incredibly fast field. I mean, this was a field that featured Riley Blade, as I mentioned, Sadie Englehart, Jane Hendegren, who at this point is running lights out right now
Yeah.
in her state. Tell me about that day. Just kind of preparing for a race like that. It's such a long day. You're having to wait till at night, basically. I mean, I can't imagine what you kind of go through on race day. It's obviously way different than what you would do on a normal race day.
I'd already said this in interviews before, but I was just trying to like mentally change what I was thinking about. because like in track season I wasn't very like confident. I didn't have the season I wanted. But going into Woodbridge, I was like, my dad was like, just stay with the front pack for as long as you can. Like, you're good. You can stay with these girls. Like, I know you probably think you can't, but you can. Like, I know your fitness is in this place. And honestly, I was really surprised because I hadn't even really been like doing that many workouts since then. Like, it was a big surprise for me. But I was just like, okay, I gotta lock in that front pack and just like stay for as long as I can. And then I started passing people, and I was like, okay, I feel pretty good. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
How did you feel? Let's just go through the race mile by mile. Just that first mile, everybody's kind of still there. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who was actually out front. I think Riley was ahead.
Yeah, it
Maybe
was
she
like
kind of maybe took a
Jane, Riley, Sadie, me, and then I think
yeah.
Sophia
So
Rodriguez.
yeah. So take me through that first mile because I know that mass start. It's so close, and you really have to get out fast, or else you're not going to be in a good position.
The first mile I actually felt pretty comfortable. We went out a little slower than I like thought we were going to be. I was like, okay, we're probably going to go out like sub 5 at this point. I thought everyone was going to like really take it out. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a little slower than I thought I like anticipated. So I felt like good. Then second mile, I don't know. I mean, people started to kind of drop off, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel it a little bit, but just I was just like, okay, just make it to 2.5, or like, just make it to 2.75. Like, you're probably about
Mm.
2.75 at this point. I kind of just gaslit myself into like staying with that front pack for as long as I could. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Did because the race is picking up, especially on that second mile, did lactic start kicking in there towards the end, or were you able to hang on for as best as possible?
Yeah, I mean at the very end, my dad always jokes at the very end he'll be like, "Oh, she's coming," and then he actually did say that, and I was like, "Oh, he's probably joking." Like I just looked back like 200 meters before, and there was no one that close to me. But then Lily Alder, she almost passed me at the end because I thought he was joking, and I slowed down. I was like, "Oh, I've got second place secured," but it was pretty close, so that definitely taught me to not ease up too much at the end. But yeah,
Hey, another middle distance runner has that speed too. It's
yeah,
you're not the only one in the field that has that speed as
yeah.
well. But like, yeah, Lily had a great race that day too. But I mean, the whole field. I mean, I was on the call for that race, and I just remember like, wow, like I mean, I knew I was more blown away by the fact what you ran. I think that was what impressed me the most. Like, how did you kind of take that going forward and knowing what you just had accomplished running 15:28?
I mean, yeah, like you said before, it's definitely like a step up from what I'd already run. I beat some pretty big names, which was really cool. It was kind of like a shock for me. Um, Going through it, I was like, okay. And then, I don't know, it kind of affected me later because I had a few little rough patches in the middle. Um, like, I had an injury in my hip, and that kind of slowed me down a little bit, and I just kept getting sick. So I had a little rough patch in the middle, and I didn't have a good race at Mount Sac, which kind of was like very different from what it was at Woodbridge. But I mean,
Mhm.
to keep going, I just gotta like, I don't know. It was kind of hard
Yeah. Well, I guess what was the biggest takeaway you had from Woodbridge?
that like I can stay with those girls, and like if I have confidence in myself before the race, like I can do things that I didn't think I could. But I just gotta like stay as long as I can, kind of. Yeah.
And then when you're put in a position, like you said, Mount Sac, it didn't go well
Yeah.
by your standards at least, because you were sick or you had this injury. Like, how do you mentally deal with that yourself? Because I know lots of people deal with it in different ways.
Um, I mean, I told myself like, okay, this is just one bad race. I know I'm not in bad shape. Like, I ran a good workout a few days before. I don't really know what happened that day. I mean, I still don't really know. I mean, I know I wasn't in bad shape. I just must have had a bad day. But going forward, I was like, okay, like use this as a point to fuel you to show everyone that like, okay, you actually are good, and that was just one thing. Um, it was hard because I've been running alone pretty much since then, so it's hard to push myself by myself, which is why I'm excited to like finally get some competition and really, yeah, show.
Well, I think you don't really. I mean, you don't really need the extra motivation. I think you know what you're capable of, which I think this is what I like about you. You're a competitor. You're a very confident person. Has that always been like, have you always been like that from the moment you could start walking or the moment you started running? Have you always been a very competitive person?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even start running until high school, but I'd always been like, people always joke I'm too competitive. They're like, okay, not everything's a competition, Kiara. But yeah, all through soccer, like I've always been a competitive person, which I think definitely helps me because I just like racing. I like winning. I like that feeling. So yeah.
And where did that come from initially?
I'd say just like my family setting. Both my parents were runners. I have four younger brothers, so I'm always like playing with them and competing with them through different things. Yeah, I'd just say it's my family, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you also have to, fight with your brothers sometimes to get what you want and always
Yeah.
beat them in some sort of competition. So, but which again, you're going to have to do that this Saturday, which it's no surprise you have to go back to the Mount Sac course, which I don't, is it the same course that they're doing it they did at the Mount Sac, or is it what they've done in years past?
I think it's what they've done in years past. So it's a 5K, and they're still keeping that hill. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So I know obviously this year Mount Sac course changed,
Yeah.
and I know you didn't win this year, but did you like the new course?
I mean, I'd heard from a lot of other people, and I think it myself. There honestly like wasn't really much of a difference. It was weird. Like
Mhm.
I don't know how, but it just seemed pretty much the same. So I don't know how much that hill really taking it out really does, but I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Whatever it is, I guess that day. So,
maybe it would have been
go.
a good race, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry about
who knows if that were the case?
that.
But I definitely know that going to the second time around, you want to get the job done. Not only do you want to be in that top 10, but you want to crush the course and you want to run a fast time. What's is that is fair assessment to make that mentality for yourself going in on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to like take it too hard. I'd rather save
Mhm.
some of that for Saturday. Um, I don't know. I'm definitely obviously looking to win. That's probably just about it. I don't need to like really go too crazy or anything. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so then, how do you? With that being said, how do you use that race? Just kind of as a preparation for next week, knowing that you're in a pretty good spot to win a national title the
Yeah.
following week.
I mean, I'd say it's just like a confidence booster, just like try to float through the race a little bit, um, and see what I can do. But yeah, it's
Yeah. And I talked with Cade Brownell about this the other day, asking about the West team. Like, what do you remember about last year's group, and like what could potentially be this year's group? I know Ruby Immels is not part of the West region anymore since she moved to North Dakota, which that's a huge loss right there. Was someone right there, but like, what could you see? Could the potential be from this year's team?
yeah, I don't really know much about it. I know that Rena and Eleanor Raker are probably going to come back, so I hope they make it. Um, it's always kind of hard because a lot of people in the West region choose NXN because we can't do both. That's the challenging part. So I don't know too much about who's going to be there, honestly. But yeah,
Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah.
Yeah, just have to wait and see what happens, and
I have two of my friends
hopefully
there.
everything.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah,
my
no, exactly.
friend.
No, well,
Let's hope she makes it. Ayana Hickey, and my
perfect.
other
Yeah,
friend
let's.
Mama. Let's hope they make it.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of representation from California girls there, and obviously Washington, Oregon, and whatever other states in the West region. So, well, I appreciate your time, Kiara. I know you were super excited. I know your family's super excited to race on Saturday. Can't wait to see what you were able to accomplish at Foot Locker West Regional, and then hopefully that leads you and sets you up for a good opportunity to claim a national title. So, best of luck in Saturday and Mount Sac cross country course.
Thank you.